The Anavar, I think, is relatively innocuous, and it is gold. I just can't think of a better cup. It's one of those things, like I said a couple shows ago, I was thinking, gosh, I just started this 4-DMA. Man, these contractions are really crazy. And I'm like, oh, I switched to Anavar. And within a day of doing that and increasing the dose, it was that obvious. I was training back, and I'm just like, holy crap, like this is crazy. So it would be a quick, noticeable, obvious change, I think, for someone who was on TRT to add something like Anavar or Winstrol.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, and myself, Scott McNally. And all of our programming is brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys very much for your support over there. We've got some Patreon questions today. In fact, load us up. I'm going to post a new thread at Patreon for all you Patreon subscribers. Let's get some more questions going for the shows, all of them. Just let me know what show you want your question on. We're also brought to you, of course, by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there to get some additional savings on your creatine or your creatine, depending on how you want to say it, your Team Skip blend, your everything else. They literally have all the basic supplements that you need for bodybuilding. So definitely check them out. Use code THINK and supplementsource.ca for our Canadians. We had a question about, it's basically like a TRT Plus question. This is a question that we've covered on drugs and stuff a ton. Basically guys that are running TRT and they're asking like, what can I add to this to get a little bit more, out of what I'm doing? So that's going to be our main topic of the day. Of course, we've got a bunch of listener questions. We've got a couple of physique critiques that we want to do. Well, one of them is just like a physique shout out from somebody at the Facebook group. And we're going to lead though by talking a little bit about the Pittsburgh Pro, if for no other reason, because Skip actually watched a modern show. Take it, guys.
Skip, what do you think? Who'd you like in that show?
Well, here's the problem. I was biased. I was pulling for Nick.
Not hugger.
Now, as long as I've been in the industry, I was friends with Phil Heath and, back in the day because he was from Colorado. So I wanted him to win too, but I think I called it pretty fairly. I try not to have those biases. This time I don't know because I don't watch modern shows. And people might think that's a little strange. Well, you just don't love the sport like I do. Okay, maybe. Maybe it's just anticlimactic to me because I've been watching shows for 40 years. So unless I know somebody or have some type of vested interest or a friend like Nick, I was pulling for him.
Yeah.
And to see the condition that he was in and him kind of, I hate to say this because I don't want this to sound, but almost needing to make a statement. We wanted him to be able to be look like, damn, he's back. Like, thank you. You just shut up a lot of people. And quite frankly, he did, I think. So there's going to be a lot of hype around the O. I could see it going both ways, if I'm being honest. I just wanted him to win it. I wasn't disappointed. I understand his disappointment because he killed it. I think it could have gone either way. Wasn't it tied or something? I think I heard that the scoring
Nick
was
won
tied.
prejudging, Derek won finals, and then they went to what they call a sudden death, where they brought him back out after the confirmation, after the routines, to do one more round of posing or 3 more rounds of posing.
Okay,
just two.
Don't know how I missed that.
What more could you ask for tuning back into bodybuilding, Skip? You know what I mean? That was such a good show.
And but like I said, I think it could have gone either way. I thought Derek could have been better. And I think that he will be better now because he was like, he had to come off stage and be like, you can do your thing in front of I'm number one in there. But when he came off the stage and he was just having dinner with his friends, he had to be like, okay, that was a little too close. I could have lost that. So I think it's great for the O. It's great for Nick. Derek's going to up his game. I think it's going to be a fun ride. I'm glad I'm going to be there. Because for once in a long time, I want to see the show. I was just going for the expo and business. My wife, we're going to hang out for 4 days prior. I'm going to be there for the amateur portion because I have a client who's potentially, I won't say likely, because you never know who shows up, but should get a pro card. if everything goes the way it's supposed to. So it'll be a fun week. But I'm looking forward to seeing that show, and I will make sure that I'm at that show. I will be watching it.
Okay.
What do you think, Andrew?
I think I think actually I don't think Derek walked away thinking, wow, that was close. I think he thought he was winning everything I've seen from his camp and everything I've seen from people that know him and know his coach and all that kind of stuff. They thought he won all 3 rounds easily, and that it wasn't even close. Yeah. But I want to touch back on your point about, because I've never seen an athlete in our division or our sport get so much love and so much hate, and then so much love again all of a sudden, and then Nick Walker, and some people think he's cocky, some people think he's overconfident, but to what you said, to your point, Skip, we were all waiting for him to come out, because he's been gone for 2 years off the stage, to make a statement, and I think he did that and then some by a mile, because he was bigger, he was as lean as he's ever been, and he was peaked to perfection. And it's not easy to do when you have a new coach. Kyle Wilkes, one of my friends.
Good point.
Kyle Wilkes nailed his peak to a T. I would love to have been in the war room with them and hear the conversations and decisions being made. But big shout out to Kyle Wilkes. He nailed Nick's peak. Some people were saying, Nick's glutes could have been a little bit drier. It's like, maybe, but he was literally bone dry, head to toe, everywhere else. Okay, and that's also comparing him. Yeah, exactly. Full and dry. And that's comparing to Derek, whose glutes are always every show we've ever seen Derek in, he's had those razor sharp glutes. So, but talk about Derek for a second. I felt this was a Derek that was more like the Derek from the Olympia, where his legs were very downsized. His upper body was good. It was full. His back was nice and round. He was good condition, but I don't think he was lights out condition.
Right.
It was it was a good version of Derek, but it was more like the Olympia versus the Arnold, where we saw him just dominate. Okay?
Yeah, it was not the Arnold look. That look is burned in my brain. It may have been, that Arnold look may have been the literal best bodybuilder I have ever seen on stage in person in my life. It was, because his aesthetics
are so good. His aesthetics are so good, and when he's dialed in, you're like, that's the best bodybuilder in the world right now.
Yeah, and it wasn't that. It wasn't that.
No, it was not that last Saturday. And I think Nick was the best athlete. I mean, put it this way: a lot of us, if you look online, just after prejudging and after they did the confirmation rounds, it was like, and I know we're all armchair quarterbacks, but it was like 95 to 5%. People pulling for Nick. And I don't think it's because they're huge fans of his physique, because I saw a lot of comments who were like, I'm a Derek guy, but man, Nick's got him today.
I think
the general consensus was Nick was the athlete that was on fire. He was peaked. He looked perfect to the best of his possible ability. And I'll say one more thing. When they turn around to the back, Derek arguably has the best back in the world right now, right?
Yep. Yeah, that rear double is, I think, unbeatable, honestly.
But here's the thing.
It's such a good shot.
There were a lot of times when they turned around, I'm like, I think I like Nick in these back shots, both the rear spread and in the rear double. And I'm not the only one with that opinion. So
I didn't see that. I felt like it was close. It could have gone either way. But as far as shots go, I would have given the rear double to Derek. My opinion personally.
Sure. No, that's great. No, you
it's
should
honest,
have With that being said,
he's not going to come back on the show, but whatever, Skip.
Yeah. It's one shot, it's one shot.
No, I know.
With all that said, though, because we said what a great idea for the Olympia, or it's going to be a great Olympia. Wouldn't it have been better if Nick would have won this one?
Yeah.
Because now you have someone. Everyone is beating each other. All the good guys, Hottie, Samson, Nick, Derek, would have all beaten each other at different points in the last 2 to 3 years. Wouldn't that have set up the final showdown for 2025 for the Olympia?
That'd be wild.
But that being said, though, I think Nick's going to, I think he's going to be even better this week. I think, what is it, Wednesday right now? In 3 to 4 days, I think he's going to be even better, or at least
People
the same that we
Friday.
saw him. What's that?
People will see this on Friday.
So tomorrow,
tomorrow,
Nick is going to shock the world again and come in at his all-time best, even better than he was last week. And I'm happy to say that I'm going to be there to see him in person. So.
That's nice. Hell yeah, man. I'm happy you're going. You'll have to get some pictures for us and stuff and tell us all about it.
We'll do.
I am certain that it wasn't much of a consolation to take second, no question. I mean, he clearly was disappointed. I hope that when the dust settles, number one, I hope that he pulls this win off, at New York. But when the dust settles, the statement that it's just not just your back. like it was holy shit. Like he won so many people that like you said, any doubters or any haters, I mean, he just reeled them in like they were fish, not even fighting the line. It's crazy. And there is that doubt. Let's be fair. I had it. I'm being honest. I had that doubt. I'm like, man, he's had a lot of obstacles. He's had a lot of ups and downs. Maybe. It crossed my mind. Maybe it's a psychological thing that he isn't sure if he can do it. But I think
after last week, right?
I was like, dude, you gotta be a little stressed. Hopefully you're chill. It's like, I'm not stressed at all. I was like, oh shit, nice. This might be good. I expected him. And it's hard to do because I can't relate, but I try to put myself in that after taking the hits over the last couple years, and he takes it in stride so well, better than I would ever be able to take it. And that's why it's one more reason. It's not why he's there, but it's one more reason why he's there and I'm not, because he can roll with that shit. Huge statement. I'm just really excited for. I like him. I know some people don't, whether it be cocky, arrogant. They said the same shit about Phil Heath.
You just don't know him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have one interaction with someone. I'm guilty of it. I had a bad interaction with Lee Labrada years ago and thought he was a dick for 20 years. That's not fair. I've had people run into me and I've been a dick to them for 5 seconds and they think I'm a dick for 20 years. I don't know if that's fair. So, you're going to have those interactions and you're going to, unfortunately, we judge people that way. But I think he won a lot of people. I'm excited. I'm excited for him, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing this battle, not just, obviously New York, but in the fall. It's going to be cool. And the hype leading up to it.
Well, we've got our main topic, and I will add, too, just to say one thing on this topic, was that it's just bodybuilding. We had a segment, should Nick Walker retire? I think I titled it. Because, and this was, 2 episodes ago, right? Because people have been giving him so much crap, and that you hear that, like, oh, Nick needs to retire. And, like, our argument was, like, on Nick's worst day, he's what? On his worst day, the 8th best bodybuilder of the world.
Yeah.
Meaning,
exactly.
like, out of everybody competing at every show, everywhere in the entire world, the 8th best on his worst day. Yeah. Why should he retire? And we put that out as a clip, and we got a lot of people that were like, no, yeah, he needs to quit. He's washed up, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then now we put out this new clip about, the way the show went, and there were so many people, and some of those people that were, like you said, Andrew, I'm not a Nick fan, but you know what, man, I think he had that show. I think that he got robbed. So I think it's incredible to see the turnaround
right now. Robbed. That's the word. And it's at worst, Nick is from top 4 to better. At worst, he's a top 4 bodybuilder, which is just going to make a great showdown at the Olympia this year, assuming he wins this next show.
I backed off on the robbed part. I'll tell you why. I think it goes back to you got to knock him out.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I look at it this way, though. At every show, no matter what division, it's when it's down to 2 people or 3, who do you look to and you just can't take your eyes off during the pose? You might glance at the other guy, you're like, and then you look back at the guy who's just on, and that was Nick for me, and I think a lot of other people to watch the live stream and that were there in person. So,
and I think a lot of us knew that was the best version of Nick, and it wasn't the best version of Derek, and I think that's hard to remove from the judging when in reality you can't judge it that way. I mean,
well, to be fair, one of the head judges, Tyler, he said by a slim margin, I think he said he had Nick over Derek, but the other judges by committee did not. So.
Sure. Yep.
All right. So main topic of the day is what can I add to my TRT? Somebody had asked us that this week. He was like, hey, I'm on just basic TRT. What would be the route to go to, either TRT adding more test or TRT plus something else, perhaps Proviron, low dose Masteron, even microdosing a low dose of Tren Ace. There are a lot of people out there now. It's a different climate, right? 20 years ago, if you were using gear, you were one of the hardcore, right? And now testosterone is pretty mainstream. And some of the people who will tune into this show, aren't even watching competitive bodybuilding. They're just guys that are going to the gym. They happen to be on TRT, and now they're wondering, hey, you know what? The last 8 months on TRT, I've been feeling my best. I've been making my best gains. I'm kind of already on. What else can I do without really pushing the boundaries, without, risking my health, without skewing my numbers? And, maybe they do have to go and see their TRT doctor to do blood work again in another few months, and they don't want it to look too wild when he gets there, What are your guys' thoughts?
I guess, if you want to go the absolute safest route, I would stay on your TRT, and then I would introduce, a lower decent dose of growth hormone. I think that would be the safest compound you could possibly do. But if we're talking about other PEDs, I like to do something with a lot of people that are getting into the PED realm or the TRT Plus realm of, all right, we got your baseline of testosterone figured out. We know where that puts you, somewhere in the 900s or so, maybe a little bit higher. Your lab markers are good. So why don't we do like a 6-week experiment with something that we will be able to see noticeable gains, whether it's, 40 milligrams of Anavar for that 6 weeks, or 40 milligrams of Winstrol, or if we're doing, say, like 75 milligrams of testosterone, every other day or every third day, let's add 25 to 50 milligrams of Masteron. And I like to do these little 6-week or so experiments, and then we can kind of gauge, okay, how do you feel? Are you sleeping well? Did it affect your labs when we look at your labs next? Are you seeing muscular gains, better performance in the gym, all those different things? And then we can come up with a consensus or an idea of which would be the good compound for you. Because, and I say for you because, my Primo might not be as good as a Masteron for someone else, or might not be as good as adding an oral in for someone else. Everyone has different individuality, and as you'll see on the podcast we did with Scott Stevenson, we all have individuality with how we respond to different things based off our different enzymatic and genetic makeup. So I think it's best in this situation to do low dose of something, experiment with it, and keep it to like a short cycle, and then take some time off, and then introduce something else, and then over the series of a year or two, you can figure out what compound's going to work the best for you. In addition,
yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. I would probably go the simple route, the most obvious route, and arguably the first step. I would just take the testosterone from 250 to 400 to 500.
Okay.
The main reason being, at first I thought, first thing popped in my head was I was like, Primo. Then you make a good point. Maybe you don't have good Primo.
True.
There's that. And it would be a bad experiment out of the gates if you crash your estrogen, and then all of a sudden your libido is in the tank. And people who are not familiar with cycling and low estrogen may not know they may not realize that without any blood work. They
might think it's high estrogen.
True.
And then start adding an AI or something in.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Or, it should be a dead giveaway if you're, if high estrogen is when you cry when you watch Titanic for the 9th time and you can't figure out why she won't let him up on the panel.
There was room.
There was. It very clearly was. They've gone over this for years. It's just so obvious. Anyway, I like the idea of an oral. The Anavar, I think, is relatively innocuous, and it is gold. I just can't think of a better cup. It's one of those things, like I said a couple shows ago, I was thinking, gosh, I just started this 4-DMA. Man, these contractions are really crazy. And I'm like, oh, I switched to Anavar. And within a day of doing that and increasing the dose, it was that obvious. I was training back, and I'm just like, holy crap, like this is crazy. So it would be a quick, noticeable, obvious change, I think, for someone who was on TRT to add something like Anavar or Winstrol. So, yeah, I can certainly see that. I like your idea of experimenting. You have the TRT as a baseline. So, yeah, you could play around for a year. You could run your Anavar 6, 8, 10 weeks, come off, do something another, 6, 12 weeks later, kind of experiment with these lower dosages, adding in maybe a little bit of Masteron at some point, and see and assess how you feel on those, and then come back to the ones that you like, the ones that you don't, out.
I also add one more point that typically, the guys that we're talking about that are into TRT Plus are usually, let's say, at least in the 30s. Usually, I mean, in your 20s, you're like, oh, Test, Deca, D-ball, Tren, give it to me, give me all of it. But guys in their 30s and 40s, I think a lot of the ones that I've worked with, they're usually in a better place in life where they have financial stability to where you're like, hey, we can do labs every 6 to 8 weeks and really see what's going on and see, hey, is this hurting you? We can check things like estradiol and see if, Masteron or Primo is affecting that. Or we can see about liver markers. We can see about all these different variables and see if, is this a sustainable compound for you to keep in longer term? I think that's a big thing. When you're working with competitive bodybuilders, we're not doing TRT plus 95% of the time. We're doing TRT plus times 100. Subtract the 1, right?
Yeah.
Add the 1, not subtract. You know what I mean? So it's a kind of a different ball game. But in my mind, guys that want to do TRT plus want to make sure that their health is first and foremost. But then the gains are just like 2A, like secondarily, but they're like 2A. They're not like, it's not the number one driver in your life when you're in your young 20s, early 30s, competing for pro cards or trying to rise up the ranks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you can do a lot with a little in that kind of scenario. If you have somebody who, let's take that picture, that guy who's in his 30s, he's, maybe financially, he's got a job now where like things are settled. Life is pretty consistent, right? He can get to the gym when he needs to, afford his food, has the maturity to be able to really lock into a plan, even if he hadn't done that before. Add in even a small amount of gear, and I think that a guy like that could probably do a lot. And I'm seeing more and more people like that nowadays. There's more and more of them. I'd say more people are doing that than there are like the hardcore guys, just because it is hitting the mainstream and people are starting to see like, hey, testosterone isn't this terrible thing. In fact, I kind of like it. I'm feeling the best I have in 20 years, Yeah.
I'll tell you what, right now I guess I would say TRT minus.
Okay.
I've been about 5 weeks of 15 milligrams of testosterone a day. And so what's that, 105, I think, milligrams a week, which is probably the lowest I've taken it. Well, I did about the same thing last year, actually. But no, my strength is exactly the same.
Nice.
And that's something I wanted to touch on is the training. Maybe I'm not doing as much volume purposely, but my top sets are still right there, My diet is, I would say, perfect, as if I was in a contest prep. It's the same grams of everything to a T every day. Cardio's being done. All those other things supplements are being taken. So you can get a lot out of a little testosterone. But if you want to grow like big boy status, TRT plus times 10 and add 1. Yeah.
All of it.
Taking a little more than 105 milligrams.
I bet you are. You guys, I got to take a break to do the whole like, share, subscribe thing, but I also want to say thank you to you. The internet's kind of a weird place, in case you didn't know, and I'm glad that we've put the community together that we have. I'm grateful to read your comments. In fact, I know a lot of YouTubers that don't read comments. I read all of them, and I try to get back to everybody. So if you comment, I will see it, and I'll try to get back to you. Also, the like button is absolutely free of charge. You don't have to pay anything to hit it, and it does help us out a ton. It's not going to like push us into your algorithm, but it will help other people to hopefully find the show. So if you like our stuff, please try to help us out. Here we go. So it was this guy, Jordan, and I'm just going to go to, if I click him, there we go. We can see all of the pictures he's posted. So here are the pictures he posted before he competed. And Andrew and I we both talked about him, like incredible physique.
Well, I think my point when I saw these pictures, I think he was like a week or 2 weeks out at this point, or 10 days or something. I was like, he's in the kind of condition that no matter what he does, he's not going to mess it up.
Right.
Like, yeah. And that's what you guys want to get to. You want to get to that kind of condition that maybe he's not as full as he could be, right, but he's going to be full enough, and he's going to be just so shredded that that's going to be the keynote of his physique. Or maybe he overfills and he loses a little bit of that detail, which isn't going to make it. He's just going to look massive compared to his in his structure. So I think him and his coach, I don't know who his coach is, but excellent job, nailed it, head to toe, great aesthetics, great conditioning.
Yeah, and he ended up winning his NABA Pro card here. Look at the conditioning in that shot.
That's excellent.
It's just so crazy. He looks good.
Yeah. And I would say he did fill out.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a real good balance between the fullness and the dryness. It's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great, most muscular.
Then also, too, we wanted to do a physique critique. Connor asked us. So Connor just won the Emerald Cup. He's a listener of the show. And talking to him on email, he works with Stu Sutherland. So Stu brought him in some pretty respectable shape here.
Yeah.
He asked us if we could do a physique critique for him.
Now, he's probably, what, 6'2"?
So he had a picture here. Look at, so he's like a half a head higher than the other guys in supers.
Yeah.
Tall dude.
So the first thing that jumps out at me is that I think he needs to bring his back up, but I also don't think he's opening his back up as much as he possibly could in this pose. But if you look at his hamstrings, like they're just so big and overpowering. And I mean that in a good way. Like he's built a nice set of wheels. He's got huge glutes. But it does make his back look a little bit small.
Yeah,
so my critique would be, I think you can A, open up that back a little bit more, but B, I think a lot of your time should be spent on, focused on your back region in terms of this off season. The legs are great. This one, he's just not, maybe someone snapped the picture, before he actually finished hitting the shot. Yeah. Well, I feel like he could bring his elbows around more, and then he's got to lean back and arch his chest a little bit.
Yeah.
To complete the shot. Sometimes when your mom's taking the picture, it's like you in halfway into the pose and you're like, Mom, like,
exactly.
Sometimes guys aren't hitting it as like they aren't full blowing it. You know what I mean? Sometimes guys are like, oh, well, maybe I want to do it this way so that I show more detail in my back. Have you heard people say that?
Yeah, but you can see the scapula out there on the lat spread. I'd be surprised if he were open on that rear double by.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. But I want to point out the last spread is not a detail shot. It is a width and size shot. Yeah. When you're in contest condition, like you see his lower back right here, that lower back's going to stand out when he's fully opened up. You're going to see he's in great shape, but it's a width and spread shot. You want to take up as much space on stage as you can in that shot. Rear double, it's kind of a cross where you want to bring that you want to see that grainy in detail, but he could definitely spread the scap a little bit more. He's got a good set of arms too.
Yeah, he does. He's got overall just a really nicely built physique, and he said I think he's going to do a national show next year. So he's going to continue working on growing.
Can we see the front shot? There we go. I mean, again, just a little bit more back, I think. Like, solid physique,
Yeah.
Just looking at nationals from last year, if he was on stage, I don't see him placing outside of the top 5. So, I mean,
in fairness, can he be drier?
It's always,
Yeah, I do think so, and that's me being a little bit more critical because the balance is very good. He's got the young skin, so I'm a little jealous of that. But it probably could be, a little bit drier.
5 pound or 2,
yeah.
I like how the adductors are touching right there. Just another year of bodybuilding. I'd be really impressed or looking forward to see what he looks like when he does get on stage at nationals next year.
Do we have any type of idea of the background of the amount of time he has invested so far?
He's done 6 shows, I believe, so far. Yeah.
I didn't look like that after 6 shows.
Yeah. I think that's what he had said. Yeah, so good for him though. He looked fantastic, and a great overall season. Emerald Cup is an awesome show too.
Yeah, it is a very good show. Always has been.
Yeah. Let me see what else we have here because I know we had a bunch of listener questions. And by the way, I should tell you guys, if you are watching the show and enjoying it, then do us a favor and hit the like button. The like button does help more than you know. All that stuff helps us to get pumped out to see more people. We're trying to get the show as popular as we can, and you guys are literally, you can directly help with that. So thank you. And comment with, let us know what you think of this show. Let us know what you think of, the placings. We talked about the Pittsburgh Pro at the beginning, and let us know any questions you have. Comment on the show with questions, and then we'll use those questions to make the next show. So I'm grabbing questions from the previous program.
Someone had a comment about, they said last time, like, if Andrew would stop snorting so much Coke all show.
What?
I'm like, what? And then I'm like, I mean, it's kind of it was like 2 weeks ago or maybe 4 weeks ago. I'm like, it's kind of allergy season down here. Maybe I'm a little sniffly, but like, what?
I didn't
Like, that's
notice.
that was the most far out comment I'd seen in a while.
Yeah. Huh. Well, don't comment stuff. You can comment stuff like that. If we get the comment, we'll just have to
take the
ignore you.
comment.
Yeah, we'll take the comment to help boost us in the show.
In the algorithm, yeah.
Right.
Say what you
right.
want. Say what you want.
Yeah. Okay, so this was just a comment. It wasn't a question. It was from Dan Smith. I believe he might be Australian. He's been a long-time listener. We talked about, I think the topic was doing a contest prep with no Tren last episode or the show before that. And he said, before Tren was huge, it was stanazolol seemed to be the absolute must for contest prep. That was before my time. I can say that flat out. Skip, did you compete back in those days?
Yeah, I mean, Winstrol was a mainstay. It always. But is it not now?
Yeah, I think it still is. But I think also like it's what's readily available to you in your time period is what people use. Like in Arnold's time, they used test and deca up till a show, right?
Yeah.
And they drank milk, because they didn't have 18 different types of whey isolate, hydroxylate, all the different protein powders. They didn't have a lot of these things that we have available to us today. Never in time have we had more access to different compounds to use to create, the perfect physique that we see on stage that we're trying to create. But yeah, Winstrol's always been, a staple.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about this one from TriStar Armory? He says, question for the next Blood, Sweat, and Gear. What are your thoughts on test to DHT ratio? Running test, Primo, and mast in a cut phase. Test is at 750. Where would you put the Primo and mast? 46 years old.
300 of each.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Would you
and I
go,
don't know. I mean, are there specific, you don't really have specific numbers. It's just kind of like a feel or kind of a gut feeling, I guess.
I don't know about you guys, but I rarely ask someone to get DHT checked on their labs.
I don't. Same.
Yeah, it's not really. I know a lot of guys are really interested in ratios, test estrogen, test DHT, all those. I'm not a ratio guy with that stuff because, someone might look a certain way with perfect ratios, whatever those might be. But other people, like, if we don't know the ratios and we're creating a really good look out of them, what does it matter?
Yeah, and I think sometimes, like as an example, if I'm in prep and I go in to the bathroom to pee and I have to reach down and squeeze my prostate to get the urine out, then I might cut back a little bit on DHT. But outside of that, I don't see an issue.
I feel like a lot of this stuff comes from. I feel like a lot of these people that ask these questions have done like the J3 University stuff.
Okay.
That sounds like a J3 University talking point or thing, I guess.
Yeah. Diego says 1-to-1 test to Primo messes me up.
So that's the thing. That's it. That's for him, and he knows that, and so he knows not to do that.
Yeah.
Through experimentation, trial and error.
It wouldn't go over well for me either.
Yeah. New listener. So happy to have found the channel and the team. I have two questions as a 47-year-old looking to add mass but not compete. What is a recommended macro percentage breakdown, and what is a preferred anabolic to test ratio? Another ratio question. I didn't even realize it was another ratio question.
All ratios.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. So what you'll find with a competitor is it might start out like, I'll go protein, carbs, fat. It might start out like 30, 50, 20, right? But by the end of the contest prep, it might be like 45% protein, 30% carbs, and 25% fat. So it's hard to say what the perfect thing is. It's kind of like what's perfect for you right now. And what you do is you write yourself a diet, or you have a coach write yourself a diet, one of us, and from there you just manipulate it. Like I would say make a change and monitor over 10 to 14 days, and if it's getting positive, then you're on the right track. And again, it's not going to work forever. No change you make in your diet is going to work for ad infinitum, but that's a great place to start. Start with something that you can stick to monitor your results with pictures, performance in the gym, etc., scale, and then from there you can adjust things. Typically, most people will find pulling carbohydrates first when they're trying to get leaner is usually the way to go. Not always, but usually.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that other than, if you go to a coach, there isn't going to be a formula. We're going to typically take into consideration what you've been doing, whether you're eating frequently, whether you're eating once or twice a day. 9 out of 10 times, I typically will start the calories higher than what they're already taking in, because I don't want to go into a cut phase with a client if they're already squashing their metabolism. I want to make sure that they're taking in enough calories to start with. So I tend to start a little higher, and then I want to come down from there if I can. But that's just me as a coach and a method that I use. You could go to 5 other coaches, and they may have 6 different methods. So we all have a little different thing.
And it might be different with, like the same coach might use that method for some people. Like someone who's already fairly lean, and we have 20 weeks, we might for the first 4 weeks add calories, right? Bump them up every week, maybe 200 calories, 150, 100, etc. But then someone who's really, really, has a lot of body fat to lose, we might go right into it really hard and fast for the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then reintroduce some calories as we go. Yeah. So there's so many ways to slice the onion that it's just so hard to say, like, what's the protocol? There is no protocol. It's coaching. It's seeing the information and reacting to it, and then coming up with a plan week to week or every other week.
Yeah. All right, and then the other topic, the anabolic topic, I think that for him, our opening topic we did about TRT Plus is really kind of a good guideline on where he could get into, using gear. So we could just kind of leave it at that. Yeah. Question for the next show, managing fatigue on a cut or prep. I'm about 6 weeks into a cut. Performance is still good. However, the associated fatigue later in the day seems counterproductive. I have to train in the AM as I work in the evening. What are your thoughts? Thanks.
When he says counterproductive, like in terms of, I mean, here's the thing, like there's no way around it. Like when you're in a serious cut and I don't care how much food you're eating at 2 weeks out. If you're in show shape already, you're exhausted, whether you're eating 3,000 calories or 4,000 calories or 1,500 calories. You know what I mean? Like the feeling is roughly the same for every athlete.
Agreed. It's a deficit.
Because you're just emptying the tank. But the managed fatigue, I think you need to plan, whether it's a skip load or a refeed or, a lot of times now what I do with people is we'll be eating more calories on the days off. Let's say they're on a 5-2 training split. Those 2 days off are actually, much higher or decently higher calorie days than the training days. So I kind of look at the training days as like a push, and then the non-training days as a pullback. Okay. And that doesn't just mean you stick to that within the confines of a 7-day week. Someone might need like 3, 4, 6 days in pulling back, whether it's pulling cardio, adding more food, pulling training out for a few days. When you're coaching or when you're working with people, like everything is fair game and every variable. And I'm sure we've all utilized every technique, every tool in the book individually with different clients.
Yeah. I'll add a couple things that, I think that, so when we do reach that point where we are more fatigued, we tend to do less. We tend to like say like he's not at work, we tend to be more sedentary. We're like, I'm not going to do extra projects. I'm not going to walk around as much. And I do think that will hurt you. If you go from, say, having a very active life, you're cooking along, we still have some fat loss to make happen in the last, say, 6 weeks. But every minute that you have, you're just like trying to lay on the couch because you're tired. I think that is not going to be to our advantage. Scott Stevenson, who we have on the next episode, he would improve his NEAT cardio by doing a project when he dieted, meaning like he would like do something like to his RV, or he would add like these new struts or whatever to his truck. And so he was like, I'd be out in my garage for 2 hours a night just tinkering on this stuff. And, we went into an episode where just how many calories you burn standing versus sitting. So if and I think our bodies, I think that we want to conserve calories as we're in that position. Like, I think that we're purposefully, like, our bodies are shutting down all of our function to try to sustain ourselves. You know what I mean? To try to fight off the fact that we are getting leaner. So I just want to throw that one thing out there. And I'll throw out there, you know, a couple of things that are not necessarily stimulants, but things that I think have helped. I think that you nailed it, Andrew, with food being the number one thing. L-tyrosine is really good. L-tyrosine, I believe it helps with thyroid regulation. So especially if you're not using T3, it can help with that. But it also helps to sensitize the same receptors that that natural stimulants and exogenous stimulants would attach to. So, you know, it would help you to make better use out of norepinephrine and dopamine, as well as caffeine and clen, all that stuff. So I had gotten into a habit of making a cup of green tea in the afternoon because it was also kind of like a little bit of a appetite suppressant for me. And I would mix in some True Nutrition. I don't even know what it was, like 1.5 grams of L-tyrosine, just dump it in there, flavorless, mix it up. And it would suppress my appetite some. And L-tyrosine does have a mild appetite suppressant effect. But that little bit of caffeine plus the L-tyrosine would lift me up and give me a boost. I believe there was even studies done, or excuse me, the military had done research with L-tyrosine as an anti-fatigue agent for the troops. So I think that that's a direction I would go before I just started laying into more actual stims. You know what I mean? Because I think that it is common to get like super stimmed out toward the end of a prep. I remember I told a guy he could drink. He said, "Well, can I drink black coffee?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, if it's black, it's not going to be a problem. You know, it's not going to have cream and sugar. You can drink as much as you want." And then we get to the show, and he's complaining of stomach issues, and he's got all this stomach acid. And, you know, it's coming out of nowhere. And I was like, "Well, how much coffee are you drinking?" We get to that, and he's like, "Oh, I'm drinking 3 pots a day."
Well, the other thing, though, the reason why the stims aren't great, that's actually a time when you want to pull back on the stims, is because you're in sympathetic overdrive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything you're already doing, cardio, training, but then you're adding stims to the mix. Like, your adrenal glands are spit firing nonstop, and they need a break. You need to have a balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic, and that's what I was referring to in terms of taking time away from the gym 3 or 4 days, adding more food, especially on your rest days, adding in things like KSM 66 and ashwagandha and lion's mane, things that are going to help regenerate in that way. But overall, the last thing I want is for people to be taking more stims and be relying on DMAA or DHAA, what else? Caffeine in general, all those different things. Because you'll see someone when they're at the last 2-3 weeks of their prep, and they're mixing like 3 or 4 pre-workouts together. Ooh. And you're like, okay, you're getting 600 milligrams of caffeine in this, plus 25 mgs of DMAA, plus whatever other
100 clen.
On top of the fat burning stims you're taking. That's when the problem is you get into sympathetic overreach, and then you get into adrenal insufficiency, where you're not producing any cortisol, you're not producing any adrenal corticoids, and that's when your body shuts down, when the person really starts to look flat. They have a very their affect is like just very kind of emotionless. It's the same way as if you tank someone's estrogen for many, many days and weeks in a row. And you're not going to make progress at that point. So managing, that's a great point, Scott. Managing the stim load is a big one.
Yeah, I get it quick from ephedrine.
If it's brief and it's kind of a push, that's different. I'm in that phase right now, and it is the fatigue is starting to get. But the issue is comparing that to where my fatigue level typically is. Oh man, this is a cakewalk. I mean, I hit PRs yesterday on the hack that I haven't hit in the off season at 9 weeks out. So, but I get out of there, and it's not a double cardio. I have double cardio and training, and if I'm not doing cardio training, my ass is sitting on the couch. But I'm not. I'm a very, very sedentary.
Yeah, I was going to say
you're not changing anything
regularly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never go to get my groceries. Everything's delivered. I live in a high rise, so it's not big. We had a big house in Colorado, but this is 1,400 square feet. I'm not, and the gym I train in is tiny. So it's not like I'm walking around with all these steps even while I'm training.
Yeah.
So it's very, very limiting there. So I'm not necessarily, I'm kind of the exception. I'm not losing meat because I never had it anyway.
I'm with you, man. I used to,
different.
You guys have step goals for yourself?
I don't.
You don't?
Because I just don't get here's what I do. I have steps that I have to maintain every day from my prep guy. And I do that on a treadmill because I will not get those steps. Mm-hmm. So that is one of I have a step cardio session, if you will, that is very low intensity. I always laugh and say I get on it and I don't want to think about the time because I just tell myself it's just time. It's not exhausting.
Yeah.
It's not physically demanding. My heart rate might be the high 90s, 100 tops, but then I have my cardio fasted that could be HIIT or it could be LIS, with a little bit higher, heart rate. And then, of course, I have my training. So I'm hitting them all, but no NEAT.
I have, but I'm not now. Now I'm just doing like a lot of hard cardio. So I stopped because I'll end up, if I don't tell my watch that I'm doing an indoor cardio session, I don't think that it actually is tracking those steps. Yeah. And I don't get enough steps otherwise that outside of the 2 dog walks we do and my cardio, like my steps are super low.
Okay, so then you do have a base form of NEAT though, because you're going for 2 dog walks a day, which is roughly the same every day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
And another reason
I was for a while trying to push it higher, Andrew, but then now I'm actually just saying like, screw it. I'm going to hard cardio and I'm doing like high incline treadmill as fast as I can go, getting my heart rate to like at times, man, I'm at like 130s, 140s, cranking for 50 minutes and it feels good. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. Oh yeah. I'm pushing it, man.
And I was never a fan of HIIT. I hated it.
It's not HIIT. It's just high intensity.
But I'm doing HIIT.
You're doing HIIT?
And I think that's what's helping my legs in the gym.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
I'm like, how could I be doing HIIT? And it's an interval. It's not of this long duration, but that heart rate gets up there fast. And it's funny because I'm like, okay, I have a couple old school stims in me. Yeah. I'm 55. I'm doing this fasted. If I go down, I'm DNR. I'm going to wear a T-shirt that says DNR. Just let me go. Let me go in peace. Leave my rib cage alone. But I'm responding very, very well to it and feel healthy and energized. I actually prefer the HIIT over, and we're pulling it back, a little bit now as we get in deeper. And I'm like, can I just keep 1 or 2 in there?
My favorite cardio.
I prefer it.
My favorite cardio for prep was when I had access to an Olympic-sized pool.
Yeah.
And I would do HIIT cardio in the pool. I think the most I had to do was 4 15-minute sessions, and I would freestyle it for 10 seconds, and then I would walk the rest, and on the next minute, so I'd have about 50 seconds of recovery pace, and then on the next minute I'd go again. And I'll tell you what, my legs never looked better that year than that year. The fullness was just always there because I wasn't pounding doing 2 cardio sessions for 45 minutes a day. So I always ask clients, like, do you have access to a decent sized pool? Like, first thing I always ask them.
Not practical, but it's very, very effective.
We always got the real swimmers that are like, hey, do you want me to show you how to do that right? And you're like, no, I'm just trying to get locomotion and burn as many calories in these 10 seconds as I possibly can because it's less cardio I have to do, and it works.
Oh,
I got some unsolicited advice from a guy at the apartment gym the other day.
Oh yeah, what did he say?
Yeah, he let me know that I should not be hanging on to the rails.
Oh,
while I'm doing.
I wish I was there. I wish we were there to see that, Andrew.
I was nice. I was a little snarky because he has no business.
Pull your shirt up.
It sounds shitty, but it's like you're
not in the same
so
league.
out of your out of your wheelhouse right now.
He was like, that guy doesn't
I gave
know.
him the quick. You know how like when you get looked up and down.
Yeah.
I looked him up and down, and I'm like, I think I'm good.
Yeah. Yep.
And I literally turned away, and he stood there for a second, and he walked away. And we haven't had anyway. He's the type of guy that when I go into the gym, I tried to acknowledge him because I see him every morning at 5 a.m. I do my cardio before I go to bed. He does his, or before my last meal. He does his in the morning. And I always try to acknowledge him, give him a nod. He doesn't want, he doesn't see me. I don't
Really?
I'm there in his gym. It's a weird.
Guarantee his eyes are, when you're not looking, are following you everything you're doing. 100%.
Well, and over the weeks as I'm getting leaner, I know he's got to be like, he ain't just coming in here walking. Like, what else does he do?
Yeah,
I
just
just thought it was bizarre that he would offer that after so many weeks of not acknowledging me, not saying anything, but he's going to offer advice. And I think I don't think he's going to give me any more advice.
Let's get him on the show. See what else he has to offer.
Exactly.
On that note, I never minded when like people are like, oh, your client so-and-so is holding on to the railings or whatever. It's like,
oh yeah,
okay, when I'm on a treadmill, I put my hands lightly on the sides too, because I'm afraid I'm going to fall off on this moving belt if I'm on a treadmill. Same thing with an elliptical. So,
I've been wearing my plate carrier with 3 loaded mags to add 3 more pounds to it. Your heart rate gets up fast when you've got a weighted vest on. Yeah. All right. Speaking of advice, we got this comment. Maybe I should put an effect on my voice if I remember when I read it. Hey, Paul, it's called lipolytic, not lipotic.
I like
Didn't I have a comment on that too?
I think you did. Yeah.
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 I think my point was like, look, we say these words 100 times a week.
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes you get slipped up. It's a simple Freudian sleep, or it's just a slip of the tongue. Like, okay.
And I'm pedantic like that, but the point is, the reality is, everybody knows what he's saying.
Yeah.
And at its core, language is communicating clearly and effectively, and we all knew what he was saying. So, is he right in the sense that it's not okay? Technically, it is. He is right, but
if I remember correctly, he had to edit his comment before anyone saw it, which means. Yeah. Okay. So, which proves my point. Like, okay, you slip up when you write or you say things quickly, especially online when you're off the cuff. So
Murphy's Law, and you know that, right?
Yeah.
It's not Murphy's Law. It's Murphy's Law. When you make a mistake, you've corrected someone, you make a mistake, and then you put that up. And the cool thing about it is 9 out of 10 times they'll try to bust you because they think that you didn't spell Murphy's Law correct, and it's so oddly ironic. It's just gorgeous, and then people will laugh and they don't
walk
get
right
it.
into it.
Yeah, it's set them up. Just set the pins up and then let them knock them down. It's good.
All right, Casey from Patreon has one for us. When is a good time to add Anadrol, considering it might crush appetite in a bulk?
That's different for everyone. I mean, some people it's never, especially if they're already. Yeah, well, I mean, if they're at their wits' end with food as it is, it's like, don't add it in, because you're going to be pulling back to, if you're on 6 meals, you're only going to want to eat 3. When's a good time? I mean, there's a couple different things I like to do. Like, if we're at a sticking point with weight and we have tried adding more food, and that's not becoming the answer because they're just getting kind of fatter and flatter appearing wise, and maybe performance is going down a little bit, or they're losing sleep, then I would probably add in like 50 to 100 mgs of Anadrol for like 2 weeks before it really kills their appetite. And you'll see their weight jump 6-7 pounds. They look rounder, fuller. They're hitting some strength plateaus. They're beating some strength plateaus. That might be a situation. Another situation is you might want to use it intermittently on certain days. Like, and I know someone's going to beat us up in the comments that you can't use an oral to fix a body part. And it's like, well, guess what? If you can get more training volume, more training force, and beat some strength plateaus by using a compound, you're going to build some more muscle. And if that's your weak body part, you're going to improve that body part over time. Even if it's, let's say you're training back twice a week and you're trying to generate more force because you're trying to beat a 405 deadlift for 10 reps, you're trying to get it to 455 for 10. And you do that over 4 to 5 weeks using help of Anadrol. Guess what? You just put 50 pounds on your 10 rep max on a deadlift, which is going to equate to muscle mass being gained.
I agree with that.
I've taken Anadrol for only a week at a time during a deload. And it's worked really well.
It's not a bad idea.
So just something to consider.
Did you talk to John Meadows?
Does he do the same shit for real?
He was kind of, he was always, even in contest prep, people would be like, oh, bullshit. 250 mgs of test a week. Start off-season, contest prep, okay? And then he would just layer in some low doses of other compounds to get into the kind of look that he brought to stage, right? So he's a very low dose guy. GH, maybe a little different story, but the PEDs, the anabolics or the androgens, very low dose. But what he would like to do a lot of times was he would just cruise at 250 a week, and then like 10, 15 days out before he had to go to like the Arnold's to make an appearance or the Olympia, he would add in like 50 to 100 mgs of Anadrol, and he would blow up. Like he would send me pictures from like day one to like right before the day of the show, and it's like, dude, you look like you put on 25 pounds of tissue.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm still only eating like 1,800 calories too.
I've done it on vacation where I know I'm not going to be eating as much and I may not be training as much, and just to maximize that recovery for a short period of time. It's
good idea.
It's just kind of, I always looked at it as, do other people do it? Probably not. Is it out of the box thinking just to experiment and see what happens? And I always had a good response from it. So
that's when you come up with your great discoveries that you can then share with clients, because no one else has thought of it, no one else is doing it, and it might not work for 100% of people, but if it works for half of them, then it works.
And I've done shit that hasn't worked, and I'm like, well, okay, we'll shelf that. So there's that too. We just don't talk about the things that don't work.
Stefan asked us, is Primo something in the stream? Is Primo something that you'll pull out a few weeks out of a contest, or would you run it all the way in?
Are you sure it's real Primo? And if you are, then I wouldn't.
You're going to look really good already, right, Andrew? Like if it's real Primo, you should look better,
Yeah.
But if you think it's just more test prop, then just pull it out, because you're probably already taking test prop. And if you really want to, if you want to bring that estrogen down a little bit, then you probably want to lower your test dose. So yeah, I would leave Primo in right through like the Tuesday before show.
I think the good thing about being a veteran with gear is even if you're taking 7 different things, you're going to know if something is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think the only way you wouldn't is if you added 3 or 4 of those compounds at one time.
Yep.
Same time. And then you might not know.
Yep.
All right. I think that was about all we had. Skip, did you have a word of the day?
I did.
Did you? What you got for us?
Sesquipedalian.
Oh, I say that word all the time.
Do you? Yes. And
what?
Sesquipedalian. What it is, and it's a great word because even just hearing the word tells you it's a person who uses words that are way too big, or they're not necessary. You're using A-list words and you're a B-list word kind of guy.
I can't even say that.
Sesquipedalian. I did double check. I didn't want to say it wrong. Sesquipedalian.
Pedalian.
Sesquipedalian.
Yeah, you got it.
It's a good one.
First time trying, Andrew.
I didn't find it. Usually I'll hear something on TV and I'll stop. I drive my wife nuts. And I'll Google it and then I take a screenshot. I have an album on my phone of words that I have come across just because I've not heard the word before.
Yeah.
But it was a buddy of mine from the small town in Michigan where my wife is from, that we lived in for a couple years after we met. And we moved, from there to Colorado. And he called me and said, Sesquipedalian. I thought, I don't know what that is, but I bet it has something to do with grammar or verbiage.
Yeah.
So I had to Google it. Yeah. Yep.
You're how far out now?
To the day 9 weeks.
9 weeks out.
Yeah, 9 and potentially 14. So things are
all right.
Things are rolling. The high carb days need to go up. I had a big drop. It's one of those weeks where visually, even as the client or you look at your pictures and you go, "Oh, I'm good with that."
Oh yeah, those are good weeks.
That was a good week. That sort of thing. So it's good. And hit those numbers in the gym on the hacks. There's just a lot of. It's really enjoyable. I say it every time you ask me. I say it, and people are like, eye roll. That's cool, but just keep in mind when I say that I had a lot of obstacles, man. So when things are going well and I'm injury free, and you never know how long it's going to last, you just really try to enjoy the process, and I'm loving it.
I want to point out though, because who was I talking to the other day? I think maybe 3 or 4 of us were talking about, when you come into the gym, you're like, "Hey, how's your prep going?" It's like, "Oh, it's hard," and they're just kind of dragging out, and you're like, "Well, then don't do it."
Yeah,
if you're not looking forward to doing it, and this is the exact opposite. You're like, things are going great, and even if they weren't, even if you were having a hard time, you would say, "I'm having a hard time, but I'm loving every minute of it." Because I get to do this, and that's the kind of stuff I appreciate, because Not everyone gets to do this. It is a conscious choice to do it when you do it, and you're going to do it to the fullest. And no matter what, you're going to have our respect. No matter what happens, you're going to have our respect because you're doing it to the fullest. But it's great that you're having a good time doing it.
All right.
Now,
I got to
it
go
may
eat
not
some
be
food.
enjoyable next week.
I'm going
but
down.
It is right now.
I'm going down. Guys, go to bodyberry.com to reach out to Andrew and teamskip.com to reach out to Skip. mcnallydiets@gmail.com to hit me up. Of course, truenutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there. Supplementsource.ca for our Canadians. And thank you to everybody from Patreon. I'll be posting up a new Patreon thread. You can comment with questions over there. You get priority. And everybody here, if you're still here and you still haven't hit the like button yet, then please do, because it does help us out a ton. It's not going to change anything in your algorithm, but it will help us to get seen by more people. And of course, leave us comments. Comments are huge. We'd love to have you along for everything. So if you haven't subscribed, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell. The bell is the only way that you're going to find out that we're putting out a new show, because believe me, YouTube does not like gear content. It is not going to let you know otherwise. For another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, guys, we will see you soon. And thank you to everybody in the live stream. And thank you to you guys too.